with Alex going from being a baby to a toddler, she was a happy baby. She was very relatively quiet and docile and relatively easy, certainly compared to my other children. She was slow to reach her milestones, which is normal with a baby with Prader-Willi. She had come home from hospital on an NG tube, and so her dad and I had to learn how to feed her through the NG tube, and we benefited from lots of support from our local health visitor. She had portage as a baby to help her. She never managed to crawl. She did manage to bum shuffle, and she was relatively quiet as a baby, which I didn't mind too much. I did go back to work when she was 6 months old, and so finding childcare that could help take her to her appointments and manage the therapy was important to both her progress and to our peace of mind. She gradually progressed like most children with PWS, hitting her milestones, but late. I don't think she walked till she was a little over 2, and then a bit wobbly, but you know, she was very resilient, and we had the help from things like special shoes and special supports for her leg and a standing frame, and things that I didn't know existed as a new mom, but which were wonderful stepping stones. She also was slow to talk, so I went to some Makaton classes and learned some basic signs which helped her learn to better communicate.
Maybe it'll all come right being like the other two. But as the years went by, the gap widened. So yes, it became more and more apparent that she had difficulties, and these needed to be catered for, which there were in the primary, in the first school. In the first school, I mean, it was a unit attached to school. Very little integration really, apart from probably the assembly. But you know, the teacher there, Marjorie, she was very caring and supportive, and she learned to read and write, and she does very well on that. But it wasn't schooling as it wasn't like the other two had gone through, put it that way. But it was positive experience for her. Yeah.
And they already had a pupil 5 years older than Lydia. It was Prader-Willi Syndrome, so that helped there. And our proudest moment there was when she was chosen to be Mary at the school nativity play, because she'd just had a big operation on both her legs, been in plaster for 3 months, and they thought it'd be better for her to have a sitting part. So she was Mary. It was pretty boring being Mary when you sit there. So she cleaned her glasses on her blue gown and looked around and then got up and walked off. A bit boring. That was quite entertaining. That was a good experience. The next school, from aged 8 to 16, was very mixed. The lack of willingness to understand on the part of some of the staff, who insisted on giving chocolate bars as a reward. Another teacher would be very sympathetic and understanding and give a notebook or a pencil. So it was very mixed, that stage.
I think they thought that we were tad overprotective.
In early childhood, I don't think Lydia expressed any desire in being friendly with other children. She would be amongst other children, but not necessarily joining in their play. She couldn't engage with them at the same rate in games or activities. She was more comfortable with adults who would give her more time and be more patient and less competitive towards her. As regards food, as soon as we knew what we were dealing with, we had a regime within the household, and that worked really well. We didn't have biscuits, didn't buy biscuits. If we had sweets, it was Smarties, and Lydia would have a Smartie after her tea, which she would go and get, and she never had more because that was the rule. She followed the rules pretty well.
Very well. Still does.
Yeah. and that carried on. So she became, we would say, obsessed with food and obsessed with what she was going to have at the next meal, and the fact that in her packed lunch she didn't have crisps every day and some children did, and we would have lengthy conversations about, you know, what other children can't have and can't do. Some children can't walk and some can't hear, and you know, if you can only have crisps once a week, maybe that's not too bad. Maybe it was to her, but that was just the way we just dealt with explaining it all the time.
But she wasn't a food seeker, never has been.
No, she would go and get the biscuits in.
She's obsessed with food, obsessed with the breakfast, lunch, dinner, supper. But she's never sought it. We've never put locks on the fridge, we've never put locks on the cupboards. We don't worry when she walks into the kitchen, and she's relaxed in that. But if, for instance, like here, there were nibbles on the table,
it would be disturbing.
That would, she'd not be comfortable with that after a period of time. She'd want you to get rid of them because it was a distraction. But she's not been, you know, some are, but our daughter has never been, that's never been the angle. But obsessed, yes, with the very...
And the regime. It was the regime that we put in place, which frankly, we were very grateful.
What's happening now,
yes, so that's continued. So she has accepted that and will negotiate food. If I have this, then I can't have that, can I? So that started quite young. When she was little, she had a great sense of humour. She'd suddenly decide that one of her siblings had been naughty. And I can picture it now. She's grabbing a brother who's 11 years older and dragging him out, saying, "Come out here, sit on the stairs. You've been naughty, come and sit down here." And he's almost collapsed with love. I haven't done anything. "You have, come out here." And she had us in stitches. And Neil used to say, and Charlotte, "What did we do for fun before we had Lydia?"
We made the decision when she was diagnosed, because it wasn't obvious at the time, that we weren't going to label her, try and label her. And that lasted till she was about 10, when her weight became much harder to handle, and she was going to a weight loss camp every summer. So we weren't secret about it, but we didn't publicise it because I wanted Katie to be known for Katie and not for having PW. So that was from about the ages of 2 till 10. So she was at home with us. She, by that stage, had 2 more siblings, and we tried to lead as normal life as possible. She was at school, she was doing pretty well, and we made the decision at the time not to lock fridges and to try and just lead life normally. She started getting really hungry when she was 2.5, which is a typical PW time to start becoming very interested in food. Before then, she didn't even suck a bottle. We had to spoon feed her for the first 3 months till she learned to suck a bottle. Her milestones were delayed, but within the normal realms, so we had a lot of support with speech therapy, physiotherapy, and we got there.
Again, I don't think we thought too much of the future. And the child needed looking after. It needed to try to get her to walk and crawl and that sort of thing, which obviously took much, much longer with Nicholas.
From Great Ormond Street, we were put back to a paediatrician in our own area. He was very supportive. We had someone come in when Nick was a baby to try and stimulate him physically, mentally. She came several times a week. I had a home help because I got another child, and I was tube feeding him for 6 months. So they said, you know, right, you have a home help to help, you know. just so that I could, you know, concentrate on. It took a long time to tube feed Nicholas. Many hours spent there getting the milk down him. You wouldn't believe it, would you, when it's Prader-Willi Syndrome, because he couldn't suck. The muscles weren't there for sucking ability. So we had a lot of help. I think at home, when he was about 6 to 8 years old, I had sort of suspicions that perhaps he was more inclined to, you know, eat things that he shouldn't. But it wasn't until he was about 9 that it actually took off, taking scraps off the table if we hadn't cleared our plates. So then we were very much more aware of this particular problem. We didn't lock our kitchens. We'd heard through the society that other people, you know, lock everything up. We weren't going to do that. No, our son was going to be brought up, you know, with the rest of the family. We were going to monitor it. And in those early years, that's what we tried to do. But later we did, like many others, we came to the realisation that no, the only way was to lock the kitchen door for his own good, so that he had no access to food. Affecting the rest of us as the family, we just ate what he ate. We were allowed larger portions, he understood that. We didn't eat anything that he wasn't allowed to have in front of him, that was banished. Didn't really change as much, we still carried on, didn't we, with a fairly normal family lifestyle.
We adjusted to Nicholas.